Hi everyone, welcome to Soul Centered. My name is Ariella Halevi and I am here with my husband Baruch Halevi, and we just want to welcome you to Soul Centered. It is a spiritual center for individuals seeking meaning, purpose, and healing in the afternoon of life, which is midlife and beyond. And really we are the healer and the guide that will guide you through and empower you to find meaning and purpose, healing and spirituality in your life, to help you wake up to your spirit and to really uncover your authentic self. And that's what these podcasts are about. And we really have focused our intention on how to help you through and navigate through the trials and the tribulations and the transitions of the afternoon of life. So we're going to talk today a little bit about being undefeated and going through our defeats in life. And I'm going to have Baruch kind of explain that, but going through defeats in life and how to come out with a resilient soul.
So again, welcome everybody. We are very excited to be resuming our podcast. Took a couple weeks off to wrap up the summer and help the kids transition into the new year, but we're off and running into this new, at least school new year with this podcast. We left off with shatterings, and we'd been talking on a couple podcasts about shatterings, whisperings. The universe brings to us first an opportunity to listen. Around midlife, it starts, certainly continues on well through the afternoon of life, where these whisperings start growing. And if we don't listen, even if we do listen, life brings us shatterings. It's just a part of our lives. And in the afternoon of life, if we can create new goals, new rules, new tools, as we say, then we can reimagine our relationship with the shatterings when they come. It doesn't have to be something that's only dreaded and that is feared. It can be something that we can utilize to grow, because after all, that's why we're here, right? To grow and to evolve. And so today we want to talk about a different intention, mindset, worldview around surviving and even thriving in the face of shatterings, which is what we're talking about, undefeated through defeats. So you want me to keep going, or you want to jump in and talk about defeat?
I think that, I think we all have different definitions of what being defeated feels like and what it is. And even the term, the definition or the word defeat. When I think of the word defeat, I think of a loser, somebody who is completely lost, someone who is hiding in their shadows and not able to even take one step farther. And so while we've been preparing for this podcast and also just thinking about the defeats in our life, I thought about this idea of being defeated. It doesn't mean, there's this new term called failing forward. Right? When we have this workout video that we do, and they're always talking about failing forward. And failing forward means you fail and then you get up and then you move forward and you go through it and you move forward. And the idea that I found from the word being, from being defeated means not failing forward and just getting up and running back into life, but the meaning is sitting in the mud and the muck of the defeat and finding your worthiness inside of it.
Well, the word defeat comes from Old French, meaning undoing. Right. And I really like that. You're 100% right. Our culture is defeat adverse. Right? We don't like defeats. We don't like losers. We don't like failures. We don't like imperfections. And so everything we do is to resist that, to push it away, to deny it. We, as many of you know, we lived in Israel for 3 years. We moved there, made Aliyah, became Israeli citizens, and loved Israel, loved America, which is why we moved back. But we did love our time in Israel. One of the things I loved is being an entrepreneur in Israel versus being an entrepreneur here in America. The culture is different. And one of the defining factors, that's why Israel's called the startup nation. There are more startups per capita than anywhere outside of Silicon Valley in little Israel. Why? Because their culture doesn't mind defeat. It's not a stigma. There's no negative for trying and falling and failing. The stigma is quitting, not getting back up. But if you're scrapping, if you're in the game, or as I talk about Teddy Roosevelt's quote, "In the arena," if you're in the arena, you're going to get your ass kicked. So what? At least you're in the arena.
Yeah, there's a known joke in Israel that, you come to Israel and you go to redefine yourself. And you can redefine yourself many, 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 many times. People, they fail and then they get up and they go to the next thing, the next idea, the next invention, the next creation. And it is a beautiful thing. There are no losers, at least in, what we saw living in Israel.
There's no stigma around it. That's why, they're just so willing to try new things and to start up new ventures. In the startup world, more than 9 out of 10 companies fail. Mm-hmm. Right? It's the startup nation. 90% of the time things are failing, and it's an undoing. And if you approach it this way, is that old thing about Edison inventing the light bulb and 10,000 failed attempts, and they said, you failed 10,000 times. He said, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I learned 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Right? That's a mindset, a shift of I've undone all of these preconceptions and misconceptions and this worldview. It's been undone in this quote unquote defeat, and now I get to reimagine.
I think that's really true, and I think there is, having lived in two different cultures, we see that there are two different ideas of being defeated. And I think one of the main things that we have both faced and realized is that there's a lot of ego in this idea of being defeated. We can say this sitting here in our office in Denver, Colorado, that now that we're somewhat out of it, that we were defeated and we went through it, but there's a lot of ego involved in it. There's a lot of smashing of the ego. We think that we can just fail and that we're okay, but it brings up a lot of worthiness issues. Mm. How do you raise a family? How do you, if you continue to try different things like the Israelis do, which are so wonderful, how do you raise a family in that? How do you raise a family, and how do you maintain some sort of balance and peace inside of you when your ego and your beliefs about yourself are driving you into panic and anxiety?
But that's why I work with people in the afternoon of life, I think you do too, is because the afternoon of life is a get real time of life. Like you hit 40, beyond 40, and there's honestly a lot less bullshit, right? It doesn't matter as much when your friends start dying. My best friend died a year ago, and it shifted everything for me. This is real. This is not a dress rehearsal, and all this stuff that seems to matter. Your parents start dying, diagnosis of illnesses, divorces, job loss, whatever it might be, and we call them the shatterings. And the shatterings aren't something you want to go looking for, but they aren't without blessings. And what part of the blessing is to shatter the ego, to shatter the belief that I am the center of the world, that this is permanent, and that I'm here to, get whatever I want and have whatever I have.
It's true. I mean, I think it takes a lot of courage. I think that both of us have found through our, losing people in our lives and going and moving a family of 6 over to a different country and perceiving it as a quote unquote failure, and moving us back, and all of the things that we've been through in our own lives and that we see in the clients that we work with. I think what we see is a badge of courage, that when you are willing to stand in it, and I see it as being naked. There are many times in the last 5 years I have told you that going through a defeat and going through the trials and tribulations of midlife has left me and many people that I know feeling like you're standing on a corner with literally no clothes on, as if everyone can see everything that is going on inside of you, as if you have no filter. It's just so vulnerable. It is. It's scary, and it's brave, and it's courageous,
and it's stupid,
and all of the above. But what comes out of it, and if you can stand inside of that nakedness, is this idea that you are resilient, that you can be there for yourself.
Yeah, I had that moment. For me, and I don't talk about that much, I'd like to talk about it more, is why I left being a rabbi and went off to become an entrepreneur. One of the reasons is there's this Rilke quote. I have 2 Rilke quotes I want to share. The first one is, when we are only victorious over small things, it leaves us feeling small. And I just felt like I did everything I wanted to do in that chapter of my life. And then it was just kind of small victories. And I always felt small. And I wanted to go, honestly, out into the world and get defeated. I didn't think I would articulate this at the time. I know I wouldn't. But there's the other Rilke quote that really drove me and still drives me is the purpose of life, Rilke says, is to be defeated by greater and greater things. And I think there's this piece of us that wants to be challenged, that wants to grow, and it knows you can only grow through adversity. And you don't necessarily want to go choosing it, but there's a piece of us that longs to know that we're in the arena, that we put ourselves out there, that we've made ourselves vulnerable.
Right.
And that's the point. Because if you're just battling the small victories, you become invulnerable. You become armored up, right? And nothing can touch you. I'm beyond reach. And then you get to this place, midlife, or you make a choice like this, and you get your ass handed to you. And it makes you feel vulnerable.
I think really what it is, like, I like what you said about, this idea that we all grow from being defeated. And of course we don't invite it. It's not fun. It's not pretty. But we are, and I know I've gone through this myself, we want the happiness, we want the joy, we want those good feelings, right? And we're not comfortable as a world and as a society with being uncomfortable. We're not comfortable with the shadows of life and all the crap feelings, the hard emotions, the shadows, the defeats. We're not comfortable with it. I believe it was Parker Palmer that said, take everything that's bright and beautiful in you and introduce it to the shadow side of yourself. When you are able to say, I am my shadow as well as my light, the shadow's power is put in service of the good. And I really see that as, we fight defeats. We don't want to go through the hard stuff of life. But when we introduce it to that goodness inside of us, the light, the one that is resilient and joyful and true, then we have a whole person.
But we want to meet our shadow. I counsel so many people who, there's a resentment in their growing up, especially if you're midlife now, it's you came of age, the time of self-empowerment, and so many people I meet feel like their parents protected them from the arena of life. And there's a resentment that they, I was talking to one of my clients, maybe she's like 10 years old, and her parents didn't let her go to her grandfather's funeral because they wanted to protect her from the shadows. And she's still, to this day, it's like 40, 50 years later, she's so resentful that they tried to protect her from the feelings of the only come ever in the arena. And she spent the next few decades feeling like she was supposed to shelter herself from those storms. And now what we talk about is she wants to know that she's the type of person that can go into the storm and stand there at the center.
That's amazing. I mean, I think what it is when you're not able to be introduced at a young age to these shadows, to these defeats, to death, to all of these things, is that then we don't build the tools up to handle them when we're older. I mean, we have seen it all the time as we've gone through life, and also being, in a large synagogue, 2 large synagogues, we've experienced firsthand this idea that when people aren't given the tools to be resilient, then they don't know what to do later on in life when the shit hits the fan, when the afternoon of life, when you have those catastrophes, when you go through a pandemic. If you look at, I was just talking to somebody about this, if you look at the people that have such a, we're all having a hard time in pandemic, and we've all had all of our stuff come up. But one of my clients said that she's able to go through pandemic and accept it more because she has been given the tools at a young age to handle adversity. And that she has not been handed life on a silver platter, that it's not always pretty, but that she has resilient tools to get through things, and she knows she can handle this, even though she's older and she's isolated and she's not out in the world like some of us are. She has she has some immune compromise issues, But versus her other friends who have not been given these tools, they are struggling much deeper than she is, and she's the one that's immunocompromised. So it's interesting. If we're not given the tools at a young age, we don't know how to handle life.
I was just talking to somebody about the real purpose of college in America. It's different in Israel. In Israel, you go to the army first. So college has a totally different purpose. But in America, oftentimes what college really is about is a young person, quote unquote young person, standing in the arena for the first time in their life, trying to figure out, how do you get this? How do you do that? How do you live on your own? And I don't think it should be the first time that our children are introduced to the arena. I think 18 years old, you're a man, you're a woman. It's not it shouldn't be the initiation into the arena. In ancient tribal cultures, it was at age 10, 11, 12, 13, which is the bar mitzvah age, where you were introduced to the arena, to hardship, to defeat. And we do a disservice to our children and to ourselves if we think that our job is to stay away from defeat, to stay out of the arena, to stay protected, to be safe. Yes, be safe, but that isn't the reason we're here. If it was, look, we have 2 kids now, one's driving and the other one's about to drive. If the goal was to stay safe, then they would never get licenses. And if they did, they would drive a tank. Right?
Can they?
My daughter might, maybe she should.
Maybe
but,
so.
Have to, another conversation. But if the goal was to be safe, don't get a license. The goal isn't to be safe. It is to have freedom and autonomy and grow. And with that comes a license. And with that means getting on the road. And with that comes vulnerability and probably some defeats. Hopefully just little fender benders.
Right. I think about the tools that we give and we pass down as parents. And it is so important to pass down this idea that they can handle themselves. But if we don't know how to handle ourselves as adults, if we've skirted the defeats, and we've managed, if you have managed this far in life and you haven't had strong trials and tribulations, then, that's wonderful possibly. But most of us, it's not wonderful, but, some of us have not had the defeats handed to us. Some of us will. But for those of us that have even started at such a young age with trials and tribulations, then we have the tools to hand down to our parents to be role models to those around us.
But also, role models doesn't mean Superman or Superwoman. And sometimes you're a role model because you sucked, you failed.
Absolutely.
And I look at myself. I mean, my kids had the privilege of seeing me as a rabbi up on the beam, up on the stage, and all the adoration, and they were the rabbi's kids, and it was like royalty. And then we moved to a mountaintop in the Middle East, and I'll never forget this. It was after synagogue one day, and somebody came up to me and said something. My Hebrew was terrible at the time, still kind of terrible. And I thought they wanted to talk to me because I was a rabbi and whatever, and they basically were asking me if I'd be willing to sweep the floors. And they stuck a broom in my hand, and then they went off, and I was there sweeping, and my kids saw that, and they saw many versions of that. And I think it was really good, right? It wasn't easy. Right? I spent my 3 years there basically sweeping floors, nothing wrong with it, but it was humbling. And they saw their dad fall from the stage to the floor and everything, that entails. But I look back as that's probably a good experience for them in the long run. I think it was hard at the time, but in the long run, they saw that, here we are, we're still standing. Right?
Yeah, I mean, they also like to remind us that, we've all been through so much. They've been handed a lot of tools, a lot of situations where they've had to learn resiliency, going to school in Hebrew with zero English, just trying to survive a culture where sensitive children don't always fit. And I think that in the long run, they do remind us now, as they've gone through many different schools and many different years, that sometimes when it's hard for us as parents to have such awakened children, they remind us that we did this. that they're a product of our awakenings and our defeats and our fall from, I don't want to say greatness, but our fall from bigger things.
Well, certainly fall from ego.
Yeah,
right?
that's
it was
for
perceived
sure.
greatness.
Right. I mean, definitely was the best thing that happened to us, I think.
By far.
That we were able to teach our children and teach ourselves resilient tools to get up and to move through it and to stand in the nakedness and to be vulnerable, for sure.
And so, just kind of starting to wrap up, but it's about not just celebrating the victories, right, but also celebrating the defeats. Again, back to that, Rilke idea that we're here to be defeated by greater and greater things. It means that we haven't quit, that we haven't retreated, that, I counsel a lot of people who've gone through divorce. And the greatest courage in the world, again, is to go back out into relationship, to love again, right? And it takes tremendous faith and courage and hope, and to go out and do it again and again and again and just keep growing, hopefully growing and, getting better at it, but putting yourself back in the arena.
Absolutely, and I think what it is there's two different things. Number one is to be vulnerable and true with what you're going through. And instead of hiding behind in your shadow, it's being honest and truthful. I think Brene Brown, did this wonderfully when, why do they love her? Because she's real and raw. And why do people connect to each other? Usually when they're going through something like this, they connect to somebody else who has been in the arena, someone else who is raw and real and truthful and is not afraid of standing with you in all of your nakedness. And that's really what it means to be wholehearted and to live a wholehearted life, and to also find community that understands who you are. That's why so many divorced people, when they get divorced, they have to find a whole new community. They have this shattering and this awakening, and they can no longer even be near the people that they used to be friends with. And so really it's a coming to your knees moment when you have this real, raw, open sore inside of you, this gaping hole. How will you fill it? You'll fill it with a community that understands where you've been.
People who haven't gone through a loss, and divorce is a loss, and obviously the death of a loved one is a loss, job loss, all kinds of losses, retirement loss, loss of identity, profession stuff, is that there's multiple losses. People are sometimes shocked that you lose friends, or quote unquote friends, because they're Facebook friends, because they can't stand in your pain, in your suffering, in your realness, and it comes out and they walk away. And there's a multiple loss. You lost your father due to death, but some of your friends who couldn't be there for you or wouldn't be there for you, you lose them too. Right. And there's multiple defeats in that, but always it's an undoing of the falseness, the false friends, the false realities. And if you're willing to live a life of truth, then in the end it's good. It's not easy, it's not fun, but it's true, because I'd rather have true friends who can stand in my realness than tons and tons of false friends who can't hold my pain.
Right. I mean, ultimately, the idea of all this loss and transition is what most of us go through during midlife and the afternoon of life. And really it's about finding your empowered voice. It's finding that new voice. Ultimately, it's finding your soul, right? Most of us go through life and we never know our own soul. We stand in the loneliness of who we are. We bring that out into the world, and we are ultimately so lonely because we never know who we are on the inside. And these shatterings and these awakenings and these vulnerabilities, what do? They point us back inside to the knowledge, truth, and beauty of our own soul, so that we are not alone. So many of us, when we are going through these trials, we think that we're alone. It feels so lonely, but really we are with the beauty of our soul. We just may not know her.
People feel alone, which is a lot of the clients that we deal with. Everybody's dealing with loneliness. People also feel like failures because they've gone through defeat. And what we're talking about today is that being defeated doesn't make you a failure. Armoring up so that you never have to be defeated makes you a failure. Not going into the arena makes you a failure. I'm going to end with this beautiful passage by J.R. Tolkien, who says, "All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken. A light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king." And really just thinking about the true depths of victory in being defeated and getting back up over and over again. as a way to grow, as a way to evolve, which is ultimately why we're all here. And so that's what we wanted to talk to you about today, and I think we're going to wrap it up.
Yes. So if you found this podcast interesting, if this spoke to your soul and the shadows and the trials and tribulation that you are going through, we want you to know that you are not alone, and that we are here at Soul Center to create a community, a conscious community of souls, to help all of us and support us in the afternoon of life to reawaken to our soul truth, our soul purpose, and to feel transformed and empowered in our lives. So if you like what you heard and you enjoyed this podcast, we invite you to head on over to our website at www.mysoulcentered.org and to sign up for our newsletters and to check out all the things that we are doing at Soul Centered. And if you would like, you can email us, and we offer 30-minute discovery sessions to really uncover and discover your soul purpose in the afternoon of life.
So since it's a podcast and people can turn it off whenever they want, you can turn it off now. But if you'd like to learn a little bit more about how each of us work with clients, and sometimes we work together, we'll maybe stay on a little bit longer today and just describe that.
Sure.
So, and also when you jump over to our website, we got hacked, so it's a little messy right now, and we're going to be rebranding it. So just, forgive us for that. But please do go over to our website, mysoulcenter.org. So, I am the guide through the afternoon of life, and again, that's midlife onwards. I don't define that, a hard definition, but people who've experienced a shattering, and again, it could be divorce, it could be professional retirement, it could be a loss of a loved one, a diagnosis, dealing with some people who are recovering now, addicts, all kinds of people who want to go deeper, who want to rise higher, who want to find meaning in the struggles and purpose in their life, in many ways for the first time in their life. I really love working with people in the afternoon of life because they've tried on so many masks, so many personas, so many jobs in the morning of life. And even if they're masterful, and many of them, my people I work with, almost everybody, mastered some of those masks, it's not enough. And they want more. And before they leave this world, they want to know and live at that level of mastery, but their true purpose. And so we spend a lot of time exploring that. We also spend a lot of time exploring how you show up. And I use the Enneagram, an ancient character, personality, energy tool to kind of show our personality character types and to start learning who we are at a deeper level and how to start harnessing that energy to really build in this lifetime.
And I am your healer in the afternoon of life, and I help women to reawaken a deep connection to their soul and discover their spirit and to heal, transform, and feel empowered in their lives. So again, Baruch and I work together sometimes with clients, and we do groups, and we also see private clients, and I really help women connect to their body and to increase the capacity to feel, right? So many of our emotions are stored in our bodies, and they block us from truly experiencing our souls and our joy and our beauty in this world. So often in the afternoon of life, we ache to transform our lives, right? To get past the limiting beliefs and to experience our souls as who we are, our soul purpose. Many women that I've worked with feel lonely and disempowered in their lives. They feel as if they have a hole inside of them and they don't know how to fill it. And so what we do is that we help you, and I help you find that relationship with yourself, with your body, with your soul, and your spirit. And we do this by working with, number one, with the genogram. Genogram is a family tree. And we look at the behaviors, the patterns, the resources, the ruptures that your ancestry has passed down both consciously and subconsciously to you as a way to begin our work together and ultimately find healing with those past patterns in life. We do a lot of healing guided imagery to help you uncover and release and really use your empowered voice to really find it, to heal at a root level. And finally, we do a lot of energy work, energy healing, and intuitive guidance to help you connect to your divine spirit and soul, to help you find your purpose and to live your truth. So if you are still listening and interested in any of these, we urge you to come to our website and join us on this journey of the afternoon of life.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. Thank you for tuning in. And we look forward to continuing these soul-centered podcasts. Until the next time, salam, shalom, namaste,
Namaste, everyone.
and peace. Bye-bye.